Hello, welcome back to That Product Thing. This is episode 5. In this episode, we're going to be paying the 5 cheapest UI designers on Fiverr to redesign Twitter. Let's see what they come up with. So, you know that thing that all YouTubers do when they run out of original ideas for videos? That's right, they turn to Fiverr. They pay people small or large amounts of money to do things, and then they just show you what they did. I'm 5 videos in and I've already hit that low point in my YouTube career. I'm going to pay the cheapest designers that I can find to redesign 5 screens of Twitter. Now, I've chosen Twitter because, well, everybody knows what it looks like. And I don't think that it's a masterpiece in design, but it's easy to say that. You have to consider that it's a very successful product, and there will be many reasons behind the decisions that have been made when they've designed it. If you look at the screens that we've got here, and these are the 5 screens that I've decided to send over to our designers, there's an awful lot of information that needs to be fit onto the page. So this UI is very utilitarian. The UX isn't as intuitive as other apps, but there's no doubt in fact that it works. So what I've decided to do is give 4 designers, and I'm going to try and keep it under £100. That's £25 per designer. It seems a little bit unethical. It feels wrong because for £25 you wouldn't get a designer in the Western world doing this, or not one that you'd expect to get serious results out of. The first screen I've gone with is the Twitter feed. This is the main screen. You can see that it's got an awful lot of information on it. We've got comments, retweets, likes, we've got the share button. You have the ability to add images. You've got the time that the tweet was sent. You've got a little icon if the user is verified. At the top right hand side here, you can choose how your tweets are filtered. If you click on a tweet, it takes you into the second page that I've got here, the tweet. That's fairly similar in functionality to the home page. Below the main information, you've got the comment thread, which allows you to comment on a tweet and people can reply to your comments. Going back to the home page, if you click on the compose new tweet icon, it takes you to this screen, which is fairly simple. I've decided to leave it as a blank composition screen. I've also chosen the message inbox, which is a fairly standard messaging inbox layout, and we have the search Twitter page, which has the search box at the top, but it also has trending tweets underneath it. So I decided to take this, and we don't want to make it too easy. We don't want to show them exactly what it is that they're restyling. We have gone through and made a few wireframes, which you can see here. I've changed the name of the product to Broadcaster. I don't think it's going to fool anybody that actually uses Twitter, but you never know. It'd be interesting to see if any of the designs coming back exactly like Twitter. This is what I'm giving them. I've also given them a bit of a brief at the top here, which says Broadcaster is a new mobile app that allows you to broadcast your opinions on current affairs, your interests, gossip, industry news, cat gifs, and anything else that you and your followers are interested in. It allows you to follow your friends and rebroadcast their broadcasts too. We need the following wireframes to be styled up into a set of modern-looking mobile app screens. Feel free to tweak the copy, fonts and icons, and colour. The pink used here is just to emphasise the important elements. Feel free to change it. In fact, do whatever you think looks best. The only thing that we want you to keep is the information architecture and the logo, although you can change the colours of the logo to suit your design. Also, you don't have to style the Android elements highlighted to the right. They will be locked. Good luck. So basically, we're asking them to keep the information architecture of Twitter and restyle it. So if they were an agency that were asked to restyle Twitter by Twitter, the underlying data structure wouldn't have to change. They could effectively just do it through front-end styling. So let's head on over to Fiverr and see who we can find for our little experiment. I'm going to type in mobile app UI design and see what I get. We have results. They're all looking very expensive. We're going to have to do some filtering. Let's set the budget to, and I'm assuming this is per page. Let's set the budget from £0 to £5 per page. So we've got 5 pages and we're going to keep it below £25. Right. So let's see what we get. Samina Bristi. She isn't giving us the source file or the interactive mock-up for £4.20 per page. Let's see what standard looks like. So for £42, we're getting PSD, PNG, and all icons and image separated as PNG files, which isn't great to be honest, but it's £42. You can't really ask for vectors and XD files with an interactive mock-up. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to do it with Samina. Right, over to the Redesigns. So the Redesigns, 5 stars, he's offering source files, commercial use, responsive design, interactive mock-up, 1 page for £4.20. That is a bargain. 2 days delivery, unlimited revisions for 5 screens. See, I don't understand how that could be economically viable. You can't argue with that really. He's in our shortlist. Let's go to the next tab. Musical Nights. Again, we're not getting source files if we go with the basic option, but if we go with standard, we are getting source files and commercial use, 3 revisions, 2-day delivery. So this seems a little bit more realistic, but still very cheap. Let's see what files. I'm getting Adobe XD, £33. That's a bit expensive, but not out of this world, so we'll keep him in the shortlist. Ali Raza, 129. So 5 screens, that's too expensive. Sorry, Ali, you're out. So Tayyubb is offering us 8 screens, unlimited revisions. I'm not going to ask for any revisions. I don't have time for that. Let's see what software he's going to use. So he's offering PSD or XD files. So I imagine if we send over the XD wireframes, he's just going to amend those, which is what I would do. Original work, no templates. Now that's something that's interesting because I did assume that most of the designers that are offering work this cheap would be heading over to Envato or a similar stock website to find templates and they would just style them up and send them back to you. I wonder if we'll get any Envato templates sent back to us. We're not sponsored by Envato, but if you're watching and you want to sponsor me, I'm open to offers. Pay me. £33. Yeah, I'll keep him in the shortlist as well. Still over my budget, but let's see what else we can find. So we're on to Bishal 26. Okay, so here's another super cheap one. 5 screens, JPEG, PNG. Okay. I will design Android or iOS app UI UX for 5 screens with layered Figma or XD and unlimited revisions. 2-day delivery, source file. Although I'm not 100% certain what we'll get back, whether it's JPEGs and PNGs or the XD source file that we're sending over. We'll see, because he is coming in under budget. I think he's likely to be in the final pick. Musical Nights. So he's offering 5 screens, 3 revisions, £33. Another one that's coming at £33. You know what? I'm going to choose 2 of these because the first 2 are £22.70 each, more or less, which offsets the £33. It's going to come in over £100, but that's all right. I'm going to go on reviews and star ratings. So we got 4.9 and 38 reviews, 5 and 13 reviews, 5 and 5 reviews, 4.9 and 38 reviews. So I'm going with Musical Night, and I'm going with Tayyubb because he specifies that he's not going to use a template, and I like the sound of that. So there's our shortlist. I'm going to get the brief over to them along with the XD files. It's going to be 3 days until they'll deliver. Meet me back here in 3 days, or after the next cut, because this is a video and that's how they work. So, as if by magic, I'm back. 4 days after we sent the initial brief, we've got some responses. And I take a look at them in price order, because why not? Start with the cheapest and see what we got. The first guy to get back to me was the Redesigns. Unfortunately, he got back to me with an issue, and he had some problems opening the XD file that we sent him. So I had to try and resave it, update all my software. In the end, I sent him a new XD file, a PNG screenshot of the XD file, and a PDF of the screens that were output. To which he says, got it, thanks. So 7:32 on July the 4th, that is less than 2 days after I submitted the design. He's got back to me with a couple of JPEGs. These kind of show the design in some sort of presentation. I'm not sure that is the best way to present them, to be honest. Because my initial thoughts are, looking at these designs, repetitive. The Lorem Ipsum doesn't have any variety to it. Also, the icon is the same throughout. I like the overall dark feel of it. I'm a fan of dark themes. Spotify is one of my favourites. And I can see what they're going for here, but I'm not sure that it's worked 100%. Things that I think he could have changed to improve this. The font is way too small. I don't know why anybody would choose a font this small on a mobile app design. And I think that just gives it a bit of a claustrophobic feel. Also, the line spacing is quite tight, and the margins around the main elements of the page are quite tight. Let's have a look at the working file that he's submitted. So this is interesting. It's an AI file, which may have been why he couldn't open the XD file. Maybe he doesn't have XD, or is not an XD user. So looking at this working file, it's a bit of a mess, but that type of mess that looks like it was generated from another application. So I think this has been output from somewhere else. Couldn't tell you where. Also, another issue is that the home screen is converted to outlines. If you were submitting this wireframe to a designer so that they could get you started, essentially acting as a freelancer, and they sent this back to you, you wouldn't be able to make any amendments. Which would be an issue. Although, having said that, the following screen isn't outlined. So again, maybe it was something funny with the software they used to output it. Also, we've got a font missing up here. He didn't supply any fonts. That's always a no-no. If you're a designer and you use a weird font, you've got to supply it. Or at least agree with the client that you're going to use it, because there are licensing issues there that you need to take into consideration. All in all, I'd give this 6 out of 10. Let's move on. Bishal 26. That was £22.68 in total. Bishal was very communicative. He also had issues opening the XD file. He opened it in the end without me having to do anything, which is good. He asked me a lot of questions that I'd already covered in the brief within the XD file. But I think he was doing that more than anything to be communicative. If you create some sort of dialogue with people that you're working with, especially remotely, it can improve the relationship, especially if you're going to get rated at the end of it, as you do with Fiverr. So Bishal initially submitted an online XD link for review, which is always good. Nice and easy to use and comment. So first impressions. This design breathes a lot better. It's a lot easier on the eye. I like the use of pink. I like the use of the dark grey instead of black for the body font. He's used different photos for each user's avatar. Hasn't used the logo that I submitted, minor point. And also one thing that he has done is added this pink bar across the top with the mobile phone time, battery and status indicator. That's cheating because that wouldn't be there in real life, and the design would look more like this. Although that's not a bad thing. It's still clean, easy to read, and it gets the information across nice and clearly. The messages page looks good. He's used a bold font to show that we've got an unread message here. He's changed up the content within the Lorem Ipsum so it's not repetitive. On the trending screen, he hasn't ranked the items, which it kind of needs to be ranked. Maybe that didn't come across in the wireframe, but it would need to be reflected here. And although this does look neater, I think it feels like he might have missed the point of that page. Also, we seem to have two options here. Yes, we do have two options. Looking at the way that he's highlighted the different categories, I'd have preferred option one. That's subjective. They both look pretty professional, and I'd be happy to submit both to a client. So I didn't ask for too many changes, didn't want to waste their time too much. And Bishal submitted the XD file pretty much as we saw it. So if we look inside that XD file, we can see that he hasn't used the logo that we asked him to use. He's changed it for the Roboto font, which he could argue is the system font for Android, and therefore that's why he used it. But I did ask him to keep it in the brief. Would have been nice for him to consult me on changing it. That's a minor niggle though, and it would be easily changed if you just requested it to be changed. I've noticed that he hasn't used components here, which he probably should have, considering the wireframe had components within it. So either he doesn't understand the component setup in Adobe XD, or he was working really quickly and couldn't be bothered. Might be in the latter, and you can't really blame him for it because it was really cheap. He's got the ruler setup, which should have highlighted that this broadcast is out of alignment, but easy to miss and not an issue to fix. All in all, for £22, that was a good submission. Best so far. I'd give that 8.5 out of 10. Right, on to the more expensive guys. So, Musical Night, £35.29. There was pretty much no chitter chatter from this guy. Knew what he needed to do and go on with it. So we submitted the order 1:50 AM on July the 3rd, and 6:57 p.m. on July 3rd, he sent across the design. Submitted a PDF, which we shall open. So it's got a nice clean feel to it. First thing that grabs me is that he also hasn't used the correct font for the logo, or the logo that was in the XD file. And I actually went back to him and asked him to change it for me. So he submitted this unfinished PDF of the work. Initial thoughts are that it looks quite good. He's put some effort into the presentation, even though it wouldn't be up to the standard that we'd need to send it to a client. Also, the avatars are a bit weird. Wouldn't have taken too much time to throw a few stock images in there before sending it across. The main issue that we've got here is that he hasn't used the logo that we sent, and he's spelt the name of the company wrong. Don't like to be picky, but it's kind of an important point. Also, another thing that we've got going on here is the tiny font. I think in reality, if this ever made it to production, that would get changed fairly quickly, as you get a fair few complaints. I like what he's done with the inbox. Use a bit of creativity. Going down the design, I like what he's doing here. It's neat. We've got the ranking section going on in the trending, which our previous designer didn't have, Bishal. And I think this is comparable in terms of aesthetic style. I like this. Let's take a look at his working file, which we have here. Again, we don't have components set up, which suggests that he might not be an XD user on a day-to-day basis. And we've got missing fonts. Again, it would have been good if he'd run that past us before using fonts that we'd essentially have to pay a license fee for, potentially. I think so far he's done the best job with the images within a broadcast. And he's also used a bit of initiative to rethink the reply functionality on a broadcast. Whether or not it works better, I kind of prefer it. I think I prefer this to Twitter. It's cleaner and easier to look at, although this font is way too small. I think mixing in a bit of this layout with Bishal's typography in the main body would be onto something good. So all in all, I'm going to give this one 7.5 out of 10. 7.5. Not as good as Bishal. Bishal's winning. And Bishal was also the joint cheapest. So, good stuff. Keep it going, Bishal. Do what you do the best. Carry on. Shut up. So I'm going to give Musical Night 7.5 out of 10. Nearly there. Just needs a few tweaks. Typography's a bit small. I really like the gallery. Good attempt. Moving on to our final submission. Tayyubb. Tayyubb was £35.29 and he submitted his design on 7:35 July the 4th. So less than 48 hours. Super fast turnaround. All of these guys were really quick. So Tayyubb submitted a PDF initially for review, which we have here. Again, we've got the tiny text. Although strangely, this reply, that's normal size text, which is very strange. It seems like there's either no concept of information hierarchy going on here, or maybe it was done by two different people. It's weird. So Tayyubb has used the correct logo. He's used different icons for different users, mostly. Certain elements are way too small. For example, the number of outstanding notifications is denoted by this number 13. I promise you it is. It's just way too small to see, even when you zoom in really close. And it feels like he's been very heavily influenced by the wireframe. This design almost feels as if it's an iteration on the wireframe rather than the design in its own right. You've got a bit of an issue there, got an eye peeking through between these two images. And if I'm being really picky, there seems to be a lack of delineation between the comment and the reply to the comment here. It all seems to merge together a little bit. So it looks like this reply might have started off life as a comment and they've just scaled it down and it scaled the text and the image proportionally, which is a little bit shoddy. Looking at the inbox, not a lot of effort's gone in here. Again, there's a disclaimer that this was very cheap, so you get what you pay for, and for what we paid, this is still pretty good. Moving on to the broadcast screen, I'd probably have to say that this broadcast button here doesn't really look like a call to action. It doesn't look like it's clickable. I probably wouldn't try to click it, probably hit enter to try and send my tweet. That's something that would come out in the wash during user testing, but something to think about here. Trending, and again, not a lot of effort's gone in here. It's got number 1, so it suggests that it's going to be a ranking, but we don't know what number 2 looks like, if there's any differentiation between number 1 and number 2 to show hierarchy. The spacing between the categories is off, so there's a big gap between music and trending and news has a smaller gap. Also, the search area is quite greyed out, hard to see. Considering this is what is effectively the search screen, it's probably not the hierarchy of the page that you want to make. Technically, I think this has got to be the weakest design so far. Although, let's open the working file and see if he redeems himself. That might just be an unfinished example. So, he has sent us... Oh... Okay, so he's sent us an XD file. We've got missing fonts again. You get marked down for that. If we do this again, I'm going to have to come up with some sort of marking system. So components haven't been set up or used. We have got a repeating grid here, which suggests that they have some knowledge of how to use XD. So technically this actually isn't too bad. There are a few funny inconsistencies. Font sizing doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when the main body of the tweet is smaller than the replies and the comments. But on the whole, it does look quite stylish, to be fair. This design is the one that looks the most like Twitter to me. Tayyubb is going to take second place. I'm going to give Tayyubb 8 out of 10. It looks pretty good. So there you go. We got 4 people off Fiverr to redesign Twitter, without actually telling them that they were redesigning Twitter. And we got back 2 designs that kind of look like Twitter, and 2 other designs. For the amount of money that I spent on these, and how quickly they were turned around, you can't really complain. This does beg the question, could you outsource your job to Fiverr? I'm sure we've all thought about it. The answer for me is probably no, although aesthetically the designs were alright. They would need a fair amount of work to get them up to that presentation standard, and technically the files left a little bit to be desired. It would be interesting to speak to these designers and ask them how they price this work, and if you paid them more, whether or not they would be able to deliver a high quality file at the end of the work. Where I could see this being really useful is if you're making a prototype, if you're doing a design sprint or something and you need to get wireframes turned into a clickable prototype or screen designs at least really quickly. If you're doing something like that, farming out your wireframes to Fiverr could be quite an interesting and creative way of getting back a second opinion on your designs. Hope you found that interesting. I'll stop talking now. If you got this far, maybe consider subscribing or liking the video. If you did like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Hope you're enjoying how it's going. I got my first comment, my first real comment. I had a couple of spam comments, but I had my first real comment on the last video. 5 things you should never say to a UI designer. It'll probably pop up at the end over one of my shoulders. If you want to watch it, Alan Jones called me that product thing guy. I can live with that. He basically had a nice old rant about his pet peeves as a designer. Go over and read it. Anyway, I'm going to go now. Thanks for your time. Have a good week. Hopefully I get this edited at some point, because there must be like days worth of footage. This was harder than I thought it was going to be. See you soon. Bye.